In today's show, as the Blazers head into a mini rebuild, how many players in the roster are worth keeping? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. Listen to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Blazers your first listen every single day. It's free on all platforms, 5 days a week, coming at you every single weekday. So make it a part of your daily routine and make it your first listen every single day. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the Blazers' loss to the Denver Nuggets very briefly. And then I want to spend some time discussing how many players in the Blazers roster are keepers. This team's going through a rebuild. They're like a retool, rather, I should say. They're going to try to be good again in the fall with Damian Lillard on the roster, but they're really, really young right now. So as you look at this roster and you look ahead, how many players on the roster are keepers? That's what I want to discuss in today's show. But before we do that, let's do the real deal Holyfield fastest recap in the West. Blazers lose 124-92 to the Denver Nuggets in a game where Justise Winslow did not play. So the Blazers started Anthony Simons, Josh Hart, CJ Ellaby, Keon Johnson, and Drew Eubanks, and it didn't go great. Blazers were trailing 32-27 after one, down 17 at the break, 16 heading into the fourth, and then the Denver Nuggets tricked off on them the first couple minutes of the fourth quarter, and the game was over. They lose 124-92. That's your fastest recap in the West, truly this time. Anthony Simons led the Blazers with 16 points, but he shot 5 of 18 from floor and 1 of 9 from three. Drew Eubanks had 13 and 10, a double-double. Brandon Williams, 12 and 7 off the bench, but some of those points came in garbage time. He didn't really have many of those in the run of play. Josh Hart really struggled in this one too, 11 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, but he had 5 of 12 and over 5 from three, including 2 misses on one possession where he had wide open 3-point attempts. There's not like, mission accomplished, right? Like the Blazers are not trying to be a good team. They're trying to lose and they lost. So they're headed, that's where they want to be. Like we'll call it developmental minutes, call it whatever you want is, but like they are not attempting to be good. They are playing Keon Johnson and Drew Eubanks. Like they didn't sign a veteran center. They signed a young veteran. They're going young. They're trying to see what sticks, and they're not good. Like this is one of the worst rosters in the NBA right now. And it's one of the worst rosters in the NBA on purpose, quite frankly, intentionally. But so much of what you want to see in these games is them just like be competitive, not get totally slapped around. In the last 2 games, they got blown out. It's not quite frankly, just not as enjoyable. If they want to be bad, they are bad. Like they're there, right? But it's more entertaining for all of us involved if they're a little more competitive. If they lose a close game, that is sort of the best case scenario. This team isn't really good enough to sort of be there. And I think, quite frankly, Chauncey Billups was pretty upfront with the media after the game, saying like, we are not, if you look who we play, we're not close to a playoff team. It's kind of harsh, maybe, if you're listening and you're on the roster, but it's true. And what this team is like they're trying to figure out who might stick. So they're going to give CJ Ellaby and Keon Johnson a whole bunch of minutes and see what might work. They're going to play Greg Brown and Trent Watford and see where they can develop. They're going to get Brandon Williams, backup point guard who they've signed to a 2-way deal. They're going to get Brandon Williams a whole bunch of minutes and see if it works there. Eventually, I think they'll end up playing Elijah Hughes over Ben McLemore, but McLemore's still playing. He played 19 minutes tonight. So like this, the result of the game isn't super meaningful, right? Like the Nuggets were just way better. Nikola Jokic shot 5 times, 3 of 5, finished with 8 points, but 18 rebounds and 11 assists. He dominated the game. Aaron Gordon, 14, Jeff Green, 14, 20 off the bench for JaMychal Green. He was really good. And DeMarcus Cousins, 19, but a lot of those came in the fourth quarter when he was dominating backups and getting a bunch of free throw attempts. But I think my real, like, if there's like an actual basketball takeaway from this game is that Anthony Simons needs better teammates to flourish. Like so many other players, it's a talent-based league. And when you remove it, like his real talent off the roster, it's just so hard for him to get loose. Like he didn't shoot the ball well tonight. Like, and some of that is just like, sometimes those are going to go in, he finished 1 of 9 from 3, Josh Hart 0 for 5 from 3. Like if those are your two best offensive players, they combine 1 of 14 from 3, but like, Ant, it's just he's missing the pick and roll partner with Yusuf Nurkic, who developed into a really nice pick and roll center, and just someone you can throw the ball into the post to give him a different look. Justise Winslow didn't play, so you don't have that other like sort of tertiary ball handler or a guy you can throw the ball into to post up. Josh Hart is a really he's an elite fourth best player, but if you scale it up and say, okay, now you have to be our second option. That's tough for him. He mentioned that like some of that, the role stuff is hard for him after the game. Josh Hart also mentioned that he thinks some of his role is like having better body language, which is something I thought was interesting. He just said that like he's really an emotional player, but when you're playing with such a young group, he needs to sort of keep those emotions high, keep that positivity high, because he wears his pardon the pun, or he said it, but wears his heart on his sleeve. So he just needs to keep those emotions high. Anthony Simons talked after the game about being suddenly a vet on this team, like having to go into the huddle and be, I think he's younger than Drew Eubanks, but he's more seasoned. But, CJ Ellaby and Keon Johnson are looking to him, Trina Watford, Greg Brown, are looking to him and saying like Brandon Williams, same thing, or like, okay, Ant, you lead the way. That is such a drastic turnaround from where Ant has been. One more thing from the post game. Anthony Simons asked how old Keon Johnson was, because he's like, he's young, he's still developing. How old is he? And Josh Hart asked how old Drew Eubanks was when he was clarifying that he's one of the oldest guys in the roster outside of Ben McLemore. I'm not sure I've ever been in a post game scrum or post game media session where multiple players have asked about the ages of different of their teammates to prove their youth. This is just a new world for me. Certainly in the 7 seasons I've covered the Blazers, this is a new spot to be in for sure. Even when they had some of the youngest rosters in the league, they were mostly competitive or not suddenly bad like they are this season. So there's not much else to take away from this game. It was a loss. Ant will be better with better teammates. I'm not worried about his production yet. Josh Hart will be better with better teammates. I'm not particularly worried about his production. And the rest of these guys are big question marks whether they're future NBA players. And prior to the game, Chauncey Billups said, this is an opportunity for guys to prove they belong in the league. And that is exactly what I want to talk about in today's show. Is this is a prove it opportunity for so many guys on the roster. So when we look at the Blazers roster as it currently stands and projecting into the next year, how many keepers do they have? Let's talk about that to close the show. How many keepers do they have in the roster? But first, let's talk about Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market, the best tasting protein bar that there is. The average Built Bar, 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar, 130 calories, and just 4 net carbs. Macros that really pack a punch. And on top of that, great freaking tastes. My personal favorites are cookies and cream and peanut butter brownie. I love those two. But if those are maybe don't suit your fancy, you can find others like coconut almond or mint brownie or raspberry or salted caramel or double chocolate, plus limited time flavors all the time. So go to built.com, see what they got, try some out, and then order more from there. You'll like them. They'll pack a punch, and then you can get them on the cheap when you use that promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, let's keep it rolling. Blazers lose a game to the Nuggets. They're a developmental team playing guys serious developmental minutes. The point is not to win. In fact, the point is to lose, but the point is to find out who belongs in the league. So what I want to do to close the show, and we'll talk about this in a couple different parts, is who belongs in the league. The Blazers have not too many guys entering free agency, but they have 8 players who are going to be on the roster next year. That's Dame, Nazir Little, Keon Johnson, D. Luzada, Justise Winslow, Trina Watford, and Greg Brown III. I'll throw Ant in there as your eighth guy, but Ant is a free agent. Nurk is a free agent. Both of those dudes are going to come back. The Blazers are going to re-sign Nurk. They will pay whatever it takes to re-sign Ant. Note to the Detroit Pistons, offer Ant 5 for 125. I bet the Blazers will match. The Blazers are going to bring back Josh Hart. That's just a guess. I don't know anything, but they will. They didn't, unless he gets traded, the Blazers will bring back Josh Hart. And I think he could even project as a opening day starter next year as the roster currently stands. The only other player that's potentially on the roster is Eric Bledsoe, who is out with an Achilles injury that he's been dealing with. He's been working out more, like the last couple games, he's gotten pregame shots up. Whatever that might mean, maybe he just needs a workout, but or maybe he's closer to a weird late season showcase, a little bit of a return. But I do not anticipate he'll be on the roster next season, but he's on the roster now. So that's your group. I think when you look at that group, and I think it's easier to do it like this, who is absolutely on the roster? Like, who are absolute keepers? And then we can narrow it down from there. I think the first absolute keeper is going to be Damian Lillard Sr. I know that there's some, and we'll talk about this later this week. I know there's like a little bit of Dame zeitgeist in the air about his future with the team, but he's really good. You don't have to go that far back to remember him being really good. It wasn't that long ago. And he's under contract for 2 more seasons. He's a keeper. Then Anthony Simons is a keeper. Like I said, they're going to pay whatever it takes to keep him. You got to think it's north of $20 million, 20 and up, I would say. It used to be like the baseline was like 15 for Ant. Ant has made himself a ton of money since January 1st. I think he's in the 20, 22, 20, even 25, maybe, depending on how aggressive the handful of teams with cap space get. And like specifically the Spurs and the Pistons. Those are the teams with cap space that I would imagine would make a move. And like really the Pistons, we will see. Otherwise, the Blazers and Ant will just negotiate in good faith, 5 for 90, and he'll be back making a bunch of money. Yusuf Nurkic is a keeper. He's not on the roster, but Blazers they basically don't have a path to cap space to sign Nurk unless they cut Nurk, but they can go over the salary cap to keep him because they have his bird rights. There aren't better centers on the market. There's one other center that's of equal quality to Nurk, and that's Jonas Valanciunas. And you could argue that Nurk's better. I think you could argue either one's better. You could probably make a compelling argument, like depending on what you wanted, shooting versus just sort of like the brute force of Nurk and blah, blah, blah. And Nurk's probably a significantly better passer, but JV's probably significantly better shooter. It's like, what do you want? But like, those are the best two centers in the market. Nurk's one of them. The Blazers are going to bring Nurk back. He's an absolute keeper. I have Josh Hart in the absolute keeper category. I just think he's good. Like I said, I think it's hard to scale up Josh Hart from what he is as like a fourth best player. Like he's a really high level role player. That's what Josh Hart does really well. Like he can be that complementary part, that, that secondary ball handler. If he's your fourth best offensive player and your third best defender, you're going to be a really good team. Like he will help stars more than he brings up the floor of a bad roster. Like he's not going to help these guys because his skills are complementary parts. Like he's not this elite scorer, elite ball handler, elite passer. He's a great, he's great at filling in the cracks. Like he's a great role player, but he doesn't scale up beyond a role player. But to me, he's still a keeper. He has a fully non-guaranteed contract that has a late guarantee date. It's like the end of June. So the Blazers don't have to make a decision on Josh Hart till the end of June, but nothing about the way that they've done business suggests that they would let him go. Letting him go doesn't really get them a path to anything that's more valuable. Like they won't get magical cap space by letting Josh Hart go and keeping Ant and Nurk. Like you've got to get rid of everybody to have cap space. I don't think they're going to do that. So Josh Hart, just like the direction, reading the tea leaves, Josh Hart is absolutely part of the plan. Then I think the best way to do this is go to the other side. Who are the let them walks? And then we'll find out who's in the middle, and we'll talk about what that middle means, because I think what that middle means will inform so much of where the Blazers go from here. So I think you're absolutes. Like you're just like, if you were, the way I think about this, the way I was doing this when I was doing this exercise, and I wrote this down in my notebook, is like, if you were building a good team, who are the guys on the roster who would absolutely be involved if you were building a good team, which is the Blazers' goal for next season, right? They want to be good again immediately. They want to be a competitive playoff level team in the fall. So if you're looking at this roster, the absolutes: Dame, Ant, Nurk, Hart, Josh Hart, and the one I didn't mention, Nazir Little. He's injured right now, dealing with a shoulder injury, not with the team, but he'll be back. I project him as a long-term NBA starter. I think Nazir Little's going to be good. I joked with, I'm not actually going to share that story. I talked with someone who worked with the Blazers today, and I joked that before Nazir Little becomes a all-star, he's got to become an NBA starter first, one step at a time. So, I project Nazir Little to be a starter level player as soon as next fall. He was arguably a starting level player when he got hurt. He was really good. He was looking really good on a good team. He's at worst of one of the first couple guys off the bench. So those are your absolutes: Dame, Ant, Naz, Nurk, and Josh Hart. So then who are your let them walks? Like, who do you look at and say, okay, they can go? I think for me, Ben McLemore, pretty good end of the bench shooter. If the Blazers need a minimum fill in, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing McLemore back. But when you're like kind of looking at the roster and you say, okay, Dame, Ant, Josh Hart's going to play some minutes there. You got some other young guys who are going to play, could potentially play minutes there. McLemore's a let him walk initially. If you need to bring him back, bring him back. I think he's going to cost the exact same, the veterans minimum. He can help. I think he showed that he can shoot it. He can really shoot. Like, he's a good offensive player. He doesn't do much else, but that, as a fifth guard who can really shoot, Mac helps. But if you're saying who stays, who's a keeper on a good team, McLemore's gone. No, not a real indictment of his skill set, just the hard truth of building an NBA team. I think Elijah Hughes is gone too. He's the rookie they got from in the Utah Jazz trade. I kind of like Elijah Hughes. He's bigger and has a little more jump shot wiggle room than like he can get, 2 dribbles into a jumper, and he has size to get a shot over when they put guards on him. But he's a project, and the Blazers have other projects in the roster. We'll talk about them in the third segment. Like, to me, I think Elijah Hughes could help. Like, I was talking with Casey Holdall of trailblazers.com, and I said, like, it's weird that I think Elijah Hughes is maybe good. Like, I think that's like the most surprising part of this trade. He's had some defensive plays. I think I like his offensive game. Can't really dribble, doesn't really pass much, but I think if you had him as like a stationary shooter, he could help. But the question, is he a keeper on a good team? I think no. This is like two guys I like, Ben McLemore and Elijah Hughes. Peace. I don't think you bring back either of the two-way guys, Keldon Blevins and Brandon Williams. I think they're gone. They're goners. Brandon Williams has a little juice. I'm excited to see him the rest of the year. Let him keep playing and like prove me wrong. But at the end of February, I'm not necessarily bought in on his long-term potential, but he could sell it. I would just rather, if you're going to pick, I'd rather have a veteran backup point guard, like the Dennis Smith Jr. or Eric Bledsoe types. Obviously way more expensive, so it's like a different thing. Not Dennis Jr. isn't necessarily, but like I'd rather have a someone with a little more proven NBA track record, just because like if you're going to break the glass and say, hey, we need minutes from a backup, it's like a Ish Smith, right? Like, okay, go get it. Like, find Ish Smith, go get him. I believe it's a team option. He'll be a free agent this summer, because like you want low mistakes. So for me, fine on both, Keldon Blevins not an NBA player, but like Brandon Williams, fine on a two-way. If he wants to come back on a two-way, great. I believe he signed a 2-year contract as a two-way, but they're imminently, you can cut him at any point. Not a keeper in my book. The last one is kind of controversial, which is why I saved it for him. For me, CJ Ellabby's not a keeper. He's taken real strides. Like, he's better than he was at the beginning of the year by a significant amount. But if I'm building a good team, like if I'm trying to build a good team, I would, and knowing there's some other guys who are going to take up roster spots who are like developmental minutes, he's not my guy. Like, CJ Ellabby's not my guy. I think there's people who like him more than me. Like, I'm just talking to people, fans and my friends who follow the team. I think there's people who are higher on LB than me, but for me, he's entering free agency. I say thanks for your services and let him go. Those are you let him walk. So McLemore, Elijah Hughes, Brandon Williams, Keldon Blevins, CJ Ellabby. Oh, and Drew Eubanks. Like, he's on a 10-day deal. They're gonna let him walk anyways. I mean, they might end up finagling some way to sign him for the end of the year because they're going to need size. But Eubanks he's not part of the plan. Like he's a backup. He profiles at best as a backup center, and I'm not sure he's even that in the league. He's like a third center. He's end of the bench guy. Not so those are let him walk. McLemore, Ellaby, Hughes, Eubanks, Brandon Williams, Keldon Blevins. I'm letting all those folks walk. So then we have two more categories. Is what I want to do to close the show. Is the probables and the developmental maybes. Two guys, two groups with question marks. That's what we'll do to close the show. Let's talk about those two groups as we talk about how many keepers are there on the Blazers roster. But before we get there, let's talk about Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. You want to bet on Blazer games? Well, you can get live odds prior to the game. You can live bet during the game. You can get player props, in-game props, quarter by quarter props, all of that action to kind of spice up what is maybe a challenging final 21 games of the season. All of that is available at betonline.net, plus all the other sports you're looking for. You can also play your favorite Vegas casino games. They got news updates. They got podcasts right there on the website. They got everything you might be looking for. So head on over to betonline.net. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Okay, we got our absolutes, folks who are definitely going to be on the roster. Dame, Ant, Naz, Nurk, and Josh Hart. We got to let them walk, folks. So I'm just going to say bye. Appreciated your time. I think you could help another NBA team, but you're not going to help this one next year. That's Ben McLemore, CJ Ellaby, Elijah Hughes, Drew Eubanks, and both guys on two-way contracts, Brandon Williams and Keldon Blevins. That leaves us with 5 remaining players. All 5 are under contract for next season. So they're in strange categories because they are going to be here unless they are traded or waived and traded, right? Like Blazers aren't just going to get, I don't think they're just going to get out from under that money. The developmental minutes guys that like are you keep because you find out what they are Keon Johnson, Greg Brown III, and Didi Louzada. We haven't seen Didi Louzada. He's more of a question mark for me. Like he's in his own category. He's in the Didi category of like, I don't know what kind of player he is. Obviously young, signed to one of those sort of partially guaranteed long-term, multi-year deals to kind of that you sign young guys to low risk for the team. So you can get a look at him. So the Blazers have him under contract for next season. He'll come off this meniscus injury that he has, and they'll get a chance to see what he does a little bit and decide from there. But he's on the roster. To me, it's developmental minutes. It is what it is. Like back half of the roster, it's okay. You'll figure it out if that's the end of your bench. You need cheap players to fill out the end of the bench. If you have an expensive roster, the Blazers are probably going to have that expensive roster. Didi's fine, and if he pops, and you did well. The other two are more intriguing, quite frankly. Keon Johnson started and played tonight, and his offensive game is really tough. Like just watching him, I watched him really close. That was the player I was keyed in on tonight in the arena. I watched basically every one of his first half defensive possessions. I watched with an eagle eye, following mostly Keon while the Blazers were playing because the rest of it wasn't super important. And like, early on in that game, he had a defensive play where he blew up a dribble handoff. He knew the dribble handoff was coming. He fought over the top, so it was hard to have the handoff action happen while he was guarding Monte Morris. Then he fought back as they hand off one way, hand off the other way. He fought back to stay in front and kind of just screw up the whole action and make it a little dump off in the corner for Morris, and then it ended up just like a jump shot that was off the mark. But it was great. It was a great play. And then twice, I was watching really closely in the third quarter. Keon Johnson's so locked in on his assignment. He is incredibly locked in on his assignment, and he was not in help position because of it. He is locked in on Austin Rivers. He is up in his grill, and when Rivers catches it in the corner, Keon Johnson is in his airspace. Great defense. The ball swings to the corner. Keon needs to slide in and be a help side defender as the ball goes opposite, and he does not move because he is locked in on Austin Rivers. It's like he's figuring it out. I think he has the athleticism. He had a couple plays on offense where he missed, but he drove to the rim with like quicks and athleticism that you're like, okay, let's take a look, but he's a long way away. but that's why he's a keeper for these sort of developmental minutes. Like he's the back half of your roster. He's 19 years old. He's got a long way to go. There is no reason to give up on him after two total games with the Blazers. Like he is worth an extended look because of the physical tools. Right now he's not there. Hopefully 21 games of playing a whole bunch of minutes will get him there. But for now, he's a 19-year-old who's not ready. It's simple as that. Greg Brown is somewhat similar. I think Greg Brown has gotten better with more minutes, which is why I'm hopeful that Keon Johnson can get better with more minutes. There are still moments where Greg Brown makes dumb plays, just like low IQ plays, makes a bad foul, fouls, fighting for a rebound when the ball was going opposite the rim and he didn't need to get all locked up, takes a pull-up jump shot off of 2 dribbles when if he had just caught and shot the first one, it would have been a cleaner look, drives himself to nowhere, all those things. But then there are moments when Greg Brown pops and you're like, yes, more of that. Like, I don't know where, there's just not too many dudes who can do what he does. Like he has some special gifts and he's almost 6'9". Like he's, if he fills out his frame and continues to fill out just his feel, I don't even think his jump shooting is a problem yet. Just a little bit better feel and a little bit stronger. Greg Brown could be a high minutes problem because he plays hard and he's a freak athlete. Like he could, I don't think he could be like a really, really high level contributor. But he could play I think I said high minutes before. I meant low minutes. Like you could say, Greg, we need 6 minutes from you because we're in foul trouble. Go play your ass off. And I think he could go in there and give you 6 positive minutes. Like next season, I think that's a reasonable goal for him. You keep him for developmental minutes. So Keon and GB are in that same boat for me. Didi's more of a question mark, but those are your developmental minutes. You keep those guys into your bench. Those are keepers because you want to get these right? Like you want Keon Johnson to turn into be a really good player. Great news, right? You made this trade to have the opportunity to get talent. You don't give up on either of those. And Didi, he's just under contract, so you're going to keep him because we haven't seen him yet. So then the last two I want to talk about are the probables. They're Justise Winslow and Trendon Watford. And why they're probables is because I think they're both pretty good. But I think if you're building like a good team, a team that makes the playoffs, are we 100% certain that Trendon Watford and Justise Winslow play minutes on a playoff level team? And I think probably, right? Like I'm a big Trendon Watford believer. If you've listened to this podcast before, like I'm a pretty big Trendon Watford believer. And as a young when Justise Winslow's first couple seasons in the league, I was a pretty big Justise Winslow believer. I think his offense has fallen off a little bit to the point where it's hard. And I think his lack of shooting makes the rest of the roster, like the calculations with the rest of the roster, harder. Can Justise Winslow and Nas play next to each other? Really good defense, really good athleticism, but there are two kind of questionable shooters. Do they gum everything up? And if you put them next to Nurk, is the offense just too easy to guard? I think that's the question. I kind of think we'll start with Justise. Like I kind of think he's good because of the ball handling and the passing and the strength and the motor. Like I kind of think he can play on good teams. If he's a probably that's how I honestly feel. Probably he could play every night for a good team, but not definitely. He's not an absolute. He's a step below the absolutes, because if you're building a team that's going to like have a chance to win a playoff series, does Justise Winslow profile as the type of player that would not get schemed out of a playoff series because of the lack of offense and because of who he's going to have to play next to? Like he's not going to have the ball in his hands playing with Ant and Dame. So if you take the ball out of his hands, he becomes a spacer. If he's a spacer, and who's a spacer who doesn't space, like that creates the problem. He's pretty good. Like he's been good. He had a tough game. His last game he played, he didn't play in this one because of an Achilles injury. His last game he played, he did struggle, admittedly. Like he wasn't that good. And the Warriors, just dared him to beat them, and he wasn't able to do it with the jump shot. And then I thought he made some poor offensive decisions, but he has shown when the roster made a little more sense, when he was playing with Josh Hart and Anthony Simons and Nurk on the court, that he could be helpful. Like I think he's a keeper. He's my probably keeper because I think he's good enough to play. It's just, if you're thinking of like high level basketball, does he fit the bill? And I feel the same way about Trendon Watford too. Like I think as a backup 4 with his ability to handle the ball, his passing ability, his defensive IQ, like he really knows where to be. I think he can be really helpful. I think both of those guys are regular season guys. Like you could absolutely win games with those two gentlemen in your rotation during the regular season. It's just, if you're projecting out, like the Blazers are pretty good and what they need is to like upgrades at the forward spots. Are Justise Winslow and Trendon Watford enough upgrades at the forward spots that you feel comfortable going forward? Or is it more of the same where it's flawed 4s? And I kind of think they're in that flawed 4s category. Justise is really positionless. Like he's a 2 through 5, definitely 2 through 4. But like these are probablys. Players I like their skill sets. I like their game. But if you're thinking about what this roster needs is like non-shooting 4s who aren't elite defenders, does that check the box? And to me, probably not at the highest level, but like in games in November and December and January, almost certainly, yes, you're a better team with those players. And the real answer to this question is if you let these guys go, and you can't because Winslow's under contract for $4 million and you just signed Trendon Watford to a multi-year deal that's guaranteed next season. Like you can't let him go. You're not going to cut him. But like in the hypothetical where you do cut them, could you find upgrades? And I'm not sure you could. And so then they're keepers like that. You're keepers. The developmental minutes, the behind those guys, you could probably cut those loose and find like immediate upgrades. Couldn't find the upside, but you could find like immediately better players. I'm not sure you could find an immediately better player just off the scrap heap that's better than Justise Winslow. You could find a different skill set, but I think overall talent, you may not get an upgrade over Winslow. And I think that there's reason to believe that he fits the sort of high motor defensive intensity that Billups seems to prefer on his rosters. And you'll figure out the offense later. And maybe you figure out the offense because you have Dame and Ant and they're just so darn good that it doesn't matter. You put a good pick and roll partner there with Jusuf Nurkic, you've got yourself something. So those are the Blazers keepers. I think that you realistically have 7 keepers on the roster: Dame, Ant, Naz, Nurk, Hart, Justise Winslow, and Trendon Watford. And then you fill out the back half of these with these upside guys like Keon Johnson and Greg Brown. That's 9. If you throw DD in there, that's 10. You have 5 more roster spots. And that's the challenge. And we're going to talk about this going forward. It's kind of like, how do you fill out the roster? If you think that's 10 guys you keep, these are, 8 of these gentlemen are under contract. You sign the other 2 in Ant and Nurk. You keep it moving. And how do you maximize those 5 roster spots? We're going to talk about that a bunch into the future as we look ahead and keep it moving. But the Blazers play some more basketball games, so we're not going to jump ahead immediately to the offseason. But I think this is a good sort of primer of how many keepers are on the roster right now. And so when you're watching these final 21 games, you think like, okay, what do we want to see from Trendon Watford? What do we want to see from Justise Winslow? What do we want to see from Keon and Greg? Because if these players are part of the plan, how can we watch them grow? How can we watch them improve to get a clear picture of what that plan will be and how they fit in it? That's going to do it for today's show. In tomorrow's show, we're going to talk a whole bunch about Damian Lillard. I got a whole plan out. We're going to talk about Dame's strengths. We're going to talk about Dame's weaknesses. We're going to talk about Dame's present and future with the franchise. Like I said, there's a lot of Damian Lillard in the zeitgeist. So let's just put it all on the table. Dame's really good, but he's not perfect. And how do you build the best team with Dame's imperfections? That's what tomorrow's show will be. So make sure you come back for that one. We will have a recap of the Suns game. We're going to have Jason Quick join us later this week. Probably have Jamie Hudson join us too. That's a couple interviews. That's a Dame show. That's a game recap. There's a whole bunch of fun, 5 days a week, free wherever you get podcasts on all platforms every single weekday. Tell your friends, come back and join us. Appreciate you listening. Talk to you soon.